Hello and welcome to Behind the Writing of Realms of Aura 2, Episode 11. It's been a while since I've had a steady flow of these going. It's been a while since I had a steady writing routine going too, though, so kind of in a poor way balances itself out, but we're going on the right step in the right direction on changing that again. So today we're going backwards to a question that was asked a bit ago about what inspires some of my fictional characters and how do I keep them on track for what I need them for, as well as develop them. The first, the what inspires my characters comes from generally anything, a lot of people watching, and a lot of just observation of what people do around me to get a lot of traits, trends, like how people commonly react to certain situations kind of helps with things. But at the same time, it's also about looking at what works because you only get given a certain number of people you encounter on a daily basis, no matter where you are. There's a number that you might hit. Granted, if you're in New York City or some cultural hub, you see an astronomically higher number of people than somebody in some little Hoboken town in, well, like where I am. But if you look at the field you're given and you just kind of watch how they react to minor ups, like things that are generally common instances, minor successes, minor failures, larger, smaller, falling on your face, literally could be considered, like, you just see how somebody reacts to it. You see somebody react that's very pissed off about something like that, so you might incorporate that is a character trait that you could give them. But even more so, I do have a series of characters that's a little bit deeper than that, of course, and those ones are kind of based on different people that actually have, I want to say, done something for me in life, but it's something that somebody that is like, they've given me a reason to interlope them with a specific body rather than just kind of go to the general public's how to for my characters. And I generally try to keep those to specific roles or places in the book. Like a good example that you run into is Bugga's Buffet. It's actually, Bugga is short for Bugaboo, the Rottweiler you occasionally may see pop in or out of a video. And so that's just one of the, that's kind of a dumb one, but I mean, not dumb, but like a very simple, you could find those in any book for any author that has a pet. There's somewhere that pet has a version of something, almost guaranteed at any time. Well, not every time, because you get enough books out there, you've already used it, kind of thing happens, but you can find a lot of that anywhere. So that's a good example for one of mine. How do I keep them on track for their purpose and continue to develop them? Well, I don't design a character without a purpose. Simple as that. I don't put any dramatic thought into a character that doesn't serve some kind of purpose. Like, even when it comes down to the people that own a restaurant, well, you own that, or own anything in Realms of Aura. You own it, so therefore you have a heightened purpose in the world. Whether or not they have a heightened purpose in the plot, totally different thing. But and I make sure that when I go through and I make my characters, I give them a base. I must have X amount of my character sheet filled out before I can move forward with them. I, while working on Realms 1, when I would come into a circumstance where I realized, oh shit, I need more people, I stopped all production until I made a full list of those people and actually liked the list of people. Generally speaking, I didn't have to do a whole lot of changing around, switching around, or anything like that for people once I kind of came up with what I wanted for the for the person's name or for the person's look, whatever. Once I came up with their thing, it was pretty straightforward. I just banged the person out and then would move forward to the next one. And then when I got to the end of the set that I needed, I would just immediately type into the section that I needed and got right back onto production. But how I keep, if I'm developing, like, for say the four main characters, how they're in a constant state of development because they're in the focus more, so you need to see more of what's going on with them. You need to see the changes that they're going through and whatnot. And how I keep them on track for that is kind of like a checks and balance system. I don't have it written down anywhere, but like in book one, you get Zalian, who is in a really high position at the beginning of the book. Um, he goes through, he finds out that he has the ability to control multiple auras, making him a to be hunted multi aurable. Thanks to his position, he gets a window of like a grace window where he's not a slaughter on sight kind of person. Like the rest of them are kind of if they don't make it back to prove they're multi aurable, not such a big deal. Zalian, on the other hand, high profile person, becomes more of a problem to do that. So that just for one spoiler, he's too high profile to just kill in the streets. Is pretty much all I'm getting at for that. But and you see his changes over the course of the book, and the first book really, it introduces you to Bjorn and Maya and Juju, and you get a hint of a little bit of everybody, and but Zalian being from the beginning of the book, and Juju coming in the middle, the exposure time limits the amount you see for Juju in comparison to Zalian. Not because she goes through less or she's developed less, but as each of the four come into play, the focus is on the four of them more than one of them. Zalian's the only one that really had the focus solely on him alone because he's where the seed planted, so to speak, like the seed of the story. And but to keep them on track, I kind of have like I only want this one to get so far ahead at the by the end of the book compared to the others, and then which kind of happens. They all get to a certain point. They all rise in society in their own way by the climax and by the end. They all, not all, but everybody has their end game for characters for where they end up. Some go down, some don't go up, whatever. Um, but they all have where they cut off. This is where they stand in society or in their life. This is what they've accomplished. This is what they've yet to accomplish, so to speak. And so then book two, I'm actually looking at bringing two of the others of the main four up higher, and so you'll see a lot more of their development in book two. And book one, like I said, you had a lot of exposure where it was Zalian, or it was Zalian and Bjorn for a while, Zalian, Bjorn, Maya for a while, and then Juju comes in and it's all four. So there was just a time where each one got a little bit more exposure than the one that was introduced next to it or after it, and so that and it just kind of required admitting that these guys got more character development than these ones because they've been there longer. It's like the players on the Oraball teams that are going to come into play for book two. You've never met any of them. As of the end of book one, you will have met none of them. They are all new to you. Granted, they don't all serve this crazy. They're mostly just athletes. It's kind of like do you know, if you're a sports person, do you know who's top in painting right now? Not a whole lot. But if you're an art person, maybe you focus on those things. So like you'll be introduced to each of them by the end of the book because you'll come in contact with each of the 12 teams, and there will be information outside of book 2 released along the way to where you can kind of follow along with those characters, because there's there's a couple cool things I have with Oraball as spin-off stuff that I kind of want to explore. None of it's decided, but those characters don't take as much development. They take, okay, this is how they are, who they are, this is their purpose. So any development after that, any use of them outside of their purpose is a development thing. The main characters, you're in a constant, they're always on purpose, they're always being developed, so it's a little bit different. But little side characters, like I said, the Oraball players are a great example because they serve one purpose. They're there to play Oraball. There's a few that, yeah, they're a little bit more important to individual folks than others. There's also quite a few Aura Ball players. I think the final count was 72 Aura Ball players. Let's see. Yeah, 72. Um, so that's 72 people that are just they're there for one thing, and any more is a development thing. So you get to learn a little bit more about them. Granted, there's information on all of them that could very easily be drawn up and given, and I know it. What's useful for the book and what's to keep it on track for the book, though, is what you need to make sure of. You have to have like a little cutoff point. Do you say to yourself, all right, how much does this person going through this little side quest really help thicken the plot, since it's a side quest type thing or side plot. It's not really for the main plot, it's to thicken the stew. So you just kind of got to say to yourself, how much can I thicken the stew with this side person? Granted, it's probably paired with somebody in the main circle, whether it be the antagonist or protagonist circle. The side plot has to, in some way, shape, or form, revert back to the one of those two circles of people and push their plot. But side plots are a perfect development item for smaller characters and side characters to let, or to even focus on certain main characters, antagonists, and whatnot. Like if you have, because in my case I have 4 of them, I have little things where this one may go off and do this, and I actually focus on that little quest to do it. And I use that to develop that one character away from the others, so you can kind of get a hint to see of this, that, and the other thing. That's kind of all I have on this one. Like I said, the what inspires them, since I kind of got a little strayed from that, you can get inspired by a lot of things. I don't know, I didn't really hint on this one too much, because I just said I kind of people watch and pay attention to what happens in the world around me. But I've also had conversations with people that frankly I never thought I'd have conversations with, just because of our difference in jobs. I'll go with that circumstance. But they've been able, the people that I've spoken to in that sense, because of the conversations I've had and because of who they are before those conversations even, it was very easy to add them as characters or add something of theirs to call, or something to call theirs within the book, for if they also enjoy it, which I do hope that I can double back on those conversations and hand over a copy of the book, or hear that I sold a copy of the book to some of those people and whatnot. But the example of that is just like in music. I'm a big music person, and I've gotten to speak to a few of the bands that I've listened to after shows, and like I said, we'll get talking about just regular old stuff, and I'll bring up the fact that I'm a writer of these novels, and I'll listen to like there are certain bands I like their tunes while I'm writing certain stuff. That's a whole nother mood setting thing that I kind of already touched on, I do believe. If there's anything that I need to touch on more, say so in a comment on that video, and I will double back and do so. But we'll just be talking about some normal stuff, and I'll mention that, and like they'll be like, oh, what's that about, and I give them a quick rundown or whatever, and they'll show a little bit of an interest, and I'll look and I'll ask them straight. I'll be like, hey, would you care if, and boom, such and such thing. That's how it got inspired, is by talking to those people. And then you got your people in your own life that you see on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis, however, and you can add them in certain ways and stuff, and I've definitely done that, like I said, much like probably every other writer. But I want to say that, and you give, as far as for tracking their purpose, never give a character a higher purpose than you're willing to work with that character for. It's kind of just the biggest keep them on track tip that I have, is probably that one. Like, if you don't like working with a character, I'm not saying you don't like the character, you love the character, because if you don't hate at least one of your characters because he's a prick, you probably did something wrong. That's just how it goes. Um, you have to hate and love. There's no world where you like everybody. There is no world where that's the case. So you gotta hate a couple of your characters. But if you should love to work with all of them because they're all pieces of you in some way too, though. But in the sense of if you don't like working with a certain character because they're dry or they're boring, there's dry and boring people in the world. There's going to be dry and boring characters to work with. But if you don't like working with them as much, don't give them such a high purpose that you're stuck dealing with it because the writing for it becomes very droning and kind of sucks. um, and writing should never suck. If that, if it's to be quite frank, writing should never suck. So don't make it so all of your characters suck the fun out of it. That's just the best you can do on that one. So, yeah, thank you very much. If you have any suggestions or questions for what you'd like to hear about, just say so, and we can touch on that. Anything you want me to double back and broaden on, say so, and I can do that. And some news on some other fun projects will be coming out in the meantime.